Uncommon is a production by Neuralle, a full-service digital agency. If you want to grow with a premium agency and have the ability to work with Jordan directly, then learn more at neuralle.com/media and request a callback. That's neuralle.com/media.
My name's Jordan Michaelides and I'm the host of Uncommon, a show that asks the why on business, current affairs, media and sport. If you like this episode, do of course like and subscribe. This will help the YouTube algorithm work out whether you like this type of content. To find all previous guests, just head to neuralle.com/uncommon. For podcast audio, search Uncommon on all your good podcast apps, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify. For social, keep up to date with behind the scenes at uncommon_show. With all that being said, let's get into the episode. My guest this week is Pru Corrigan, CEO and founder of Daydream PR and the Dream Team, of course, who we've had a few guests on. And the co-founder of Batch & Co. Pru, we're just chatting about the lockdown. I was trying to think of like icebreakers and I thought, maybe we'll go with a chat about the lockdown, but I feel like it's been done to death.
Yeah.
And I'd heard that, I don't know the details of this, but I'd heard from someone that there was something about you and Jules Lund and you placing second in an Oz Stereo hosting gig.
Oh my God, who told you that?
I want to hear the story first before I say.
Oh my God, Annabelle, I'll kill her, or Lana, one of them. Okay, wow. Well, when I was 21, which was a very, very long time ago, there was a little radio station called Fox FM. And before Big Brother and the likes of all of those reality TV shows came out, Fox released a competition and it was called 15 Days of Fame. That's what it was, okay. 15 Days of Fame. I had just got a part-time role at Sports Girl at the time. So I was working marketing and PR there in the head office, and I was also doing acting. And so this thing came up and everyone was like, you should enter. So I remember Adam Milgram, who was actually Naomi's son, who was working in marketing with me at the time. Naomi owned Sports Girl. He said, yeah, come on, let's do it. So we entered and we thought it would actually be pretty good PR for Sports Girl if I got on radio.
Uh-huh.
And it turned out that I became one of the top contestants, or the final 3 to go on radio for a week. And Jules Lund was one of the competitors, yes.
Okay.
And the other lady was a mum. So basically Fox had kind of got all of their demographics right. They'd got, a young girl in their 20s who was a listener, obviously. They'd got the, the good-looking lad who the girls would probably vote for, which we know. And then the mum, the stay-at-home mum with the kids. So, and they put us on radio and they grilled us. And we had ex-boyfriends ringing up, ex-girlfriends. We had people that we work with. We had family. It was wild, actually. It was one of the wildest weeks of my life. I was taken to schools in the Black Thunders and kids were high-fiving me. The Black Thunders. I know. So,
that seems like a lifetime ago, like in the days of Jackie and Kyle on so you said Triple M or Fox?
No, Fox FM, just in St Kilda Road, in their old head office there in St Kilda Road.
Yeah, and they used to have the sign, that famous sign.
That's
do you still have the old tapes?
It was well done. Oh, do you know what? I actually, it'll be somewhere, but it's a cassette. It's a cassette of what I got as a recording of it. There's no record of it anywhere because somebody tried to find it recently. But I always say, it could have been my getaway. It could have been like I could have been on Getaway, like doing all my presenting tips and tricks. But instead, I headed down the PR line. But funnily enough, there was a psychic on that show on the radio that would talk through each one of us. And I'll never forget this. And she said, you will always stay in this industry, but you will always be behind the scenes. And I was like, oh, wow, that's wild. And she was right. I always stayed in PR. So
maybe it was saying that she saw in your personality. That's really interesting.
Maybe. Very interesting. But it was fun. The come down wasn't so good. And I do feel for those people on those reality shows. I mean, I only had a week of it, but there's so much hype and people come out of the woodworks. When you're in the limelight, people just start coming out of the woodworks. And I was only 21, so I don't really know how it all worked. And then that kind of letdown of, sorry, oh, you're not the winner. You're not going to be taken to every event in Melbourne. You're not going to be living in the Park Hyatt for a week. So Jules got an amazing opportunity really to build his life through that program. So yeah, it was an incredible experience, and I'm glad that I went through it, and it certainly made me stronger in the end. And
what year was that, out of interest?
That would have been like 2001.
Okay, because we've got Jules coming on in September.
Oh, okay.
And I want to pair up to see how long after that was Fifi and Jules.
Oh, okay. Well, the radio show.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. He went straight to Getaway after 15 Days of Fame, and then I think he did a whole host of other stuff. So
interesting. It's interesting that sort of, it's not so much a sliding doors moment, because I know you had that with the theatre game, and we can get into that in a moment. But it does make you wonder, like, if you had success there, would you be where you are today, or are you there today because of that? And also, like, the fact that you mentioned about the reality TV thing, I feel sorry for these people. I don't know, like, I feel sorry once they're on it. Like, I don't think they realize what they're really getting themselves into.
Agreed.
Because I remember like going to the market in South Melbourne years ago, and one of these just talent people came up to me and said, "Do you want to be on Maths?" Yeah, I think it was Maths. And I was like, no, I'm engaged, and I wouldn't do it even if I wasn't. So I don't think they really realize what they're getting themselves into.
Yeah, I certainly didn't. No, certainly didn't. But it was very different back when I did it. Yeah. I mean, reality TV hadn't even, as I said, Big Brother, which was the first reality TV, hadn't even really erupted in Australia at that time. So, yeah, for me, look, I'd done acting, so I thought, well, if I've done acting, I can do radio. I've got this down pat. It wasn't really a problem. And my uncle's best mate at the time was also Rob Gell, and I'd done like work experience in at Channel 9, and I'd also been at Healthy, Wealthy and Wise. Do you remember that TV show, Healthy, Wealthy and Wise on Channel 10? Yeah. I did some work experience there. So I'd always wanted to get into the industry. So even from the age of like 15, 16, it had been in my blood. I think I did some work at Gold FM as well, where I read the news. So radio didn't scare me as such to go into it, but it was the attention that you get in a very, very short amount of time. I think we were even featured in the Herald Sun too. It got a shot, it was getting publicity, and it was, what I didn't really realise was it was kind of taking the piss, saying we can take someone and make them famous within 15 days. This is where we're going. This is what we're capable of. They're way ahead of their times, really. And, I was the guinea pig in amongst that. So, and unfortunately, those reality stars are the guinea pigs in a lot of ways. Now, some of them are smart and can make businesses out of it and be quite successful at the end. But if they don't create their own character whilst they're in the show, or add something for the producers, that's where it can really turn bad. Like you kind of have to be strong and have that mindset to go in and go, yeah, I'm going to play it my way, and I'm going to make it work. And yeah, it's it can be tough. Great for the producers and great for advertising, but no one else.
Oh yeah, and I think people don't. It's sort of like having come from the finance business, that a lot of people don't realize that fund managers and clients are often diametrically opposed, even financial planners, because at the end of the day, they rely on you investing more and more so they can get more and more commissions. And it's sort of a similar relationship with producers and these stars. I guess I'm curious, thinking to your time as a kid, what did you think you were going to be?
As a kid. So Dad, my dad owned a dry cleaners in Melbourne. So he had about 4 or 5 stores. And I was always working hard. I knew that was never going to be the outcome. I knew I never wanted to end up in the dry cleaning business at all, although my cousins I have 28 cousins, so there's a lot there. So they still run Penguin Dry Cleaners over in Bulleen, Eltham, Doncaster and Templestowe, although they're not doing so well in lockdown at the moment because no one's wearing fancy stuff. So, I don't know. I think I always wanted to be in the acting world in some way, but I didn't really know how I was going to get there. My mum always said, you're going to be in public relations, but I was like, don't think so, because I was always really good with people. But yeah, I don't think I really knew. I didn't do so well in year 12. I kind of got an okay score, medium score, got into international trade out at VUT in Footscray, which was just like an eye-opener for me, who'd grown up in a fairly, middle, well-to-do income family, and then kind of get shoved over there. And I was like, where am I? Like, we had to get escorted to our cars at night because people were jacking cars, and like there was drug deals going on. And this is like in Footscray, in the heart of Footscray. So that was interesting. And then after 18 months there, I was like, I can't do this anymore. International trade's not for me. I wasn't interested in it at all. And then I went to Swinburne, and I met a university lecturer over there. And I just said, I really want to do PR. I want to get into media and communications. I'm not enjoying what I'm doing. And back in those days, this would have been probably 2000 and actually it was probably 1999. So it was before the Fox FM stuff. Yeah. And he was like, well, if you promise me that you'll do it within 3 years, I'll give you a chance, because I was a mature student at that stage. So he let me in. I couldn't believe it. David Schwartz, his name was. He was an ABC commentator.
David Schwartz rings a bell.
Yeah. So he was not the footballer.
Yeah, I know.
This is the guy. So anyway, I was only two of us that graduated in that Swinburne degree after 3 years, and I did media and comms, majored in PR, and then during that time I was at like a 21st birthday at the Beehive in Kew. And the reason I just give people scenarios, because you wouldn't believe some of the stuff that's happened in my life. And I'm standing there, and this girl says, like your jacket. And I said, oh, thanks. And she goes, where'd you get that from? I'm like, Christopher Cronus. I'm really bringing back the old brands here. And she goes, hey, I've just been appointed as marketing manager of Sports Girl. And at that stage, David Lawrence and Sports Girl and Sportscraft were all together in Hawthorn, and they were going through a split. And she said, there's some things going down, but I need an assistant. Hey, do you want to come and have an interview with me? I said, sure, no problems. So went in. I thought, what have I got to lose? Had my Cook Eye outfit on. Probably should have worn Sports Girl, but didn't like Sports Girl back then. Sat down, had the interview. Literally the next day, got the job. And literally on that same day, I'd been offered the lead role, like at the Heidelberg Theatre Company, which I'd been working. I'd been doing acting for so long, and the first time I'd actually got this lead role. And my mum said, I'm not going to support an unpaid actress, so I suggest you go and get a job. And of course, amateur theatre, I would have had to have been, really doing all of that for free, and a lot of that time I couldn't have held down the job either. So I started off at Sports Girl, and here we are today.
Yeah, and I think you spent 6 years there in total, and you ended up as sort of brand manager. I think for a while you had a marketing role at, mainly in the real estate space, so as a national marketing manager. I guess I was just curious, during that time before Two Birds, when did you realize you were good at this?
So I didn't know I was good at it until I really started getting my hands dirty at Sports Girl. And I think the best thing that happened to me was that they let me fly on my own. So I just picked up the phone, started calling. No one was really training me, which was bizarre. Had a marketing manager who definitely on the marketing side, but from a PR side, there was no one there that was really saying this is how you should do it. So it was jump in, get your hands dirty and make it happen, because I had to report to a board every 2 weeks on what was going on in PR. So, there was accountability that was given to me at a very, very young age. There was a lot of trust given to me at a very young age. I was really lucky to work with Mary Portis and Naomi Milgram, who owns Sports Girl. Mary owns Yellow Door in the UK. They are an amazing advertising, marketing, PR agency, and she was brought in to really transform that Sports Girl brand. And Mary kind of took me under her wing a little bit. So every time she would be in Australia once a month shooting different campaigns, come up with different ideas. And she'd go, you get it. She's like, oh, that's the American accent. She'd be like, oh, Pru, no, you get it. Let's talk about this. And she's crazy, right? She's freaking crazy, this woman. But I adore her, and she understood retail. And I learned so much from her, and she also gave me a lot of confidence. So I think that's where it came from, to go out and do this, and this is how you sell stories, and this is how you need to position yourself. And you know, in those days, Cosmo and Clio, which God bless, both those magazines are no longer with us. You know, we had the chance to focus those days. Now in PR, there's so much opportunity. I mean, here we are today doing a podcast. These opportunities weren't around. I remember building the Sports Girl website, which was such a big thing. Like, who had websites in 2002? You know, it was crazy. So and social media certainly wasn't around. So, and neither was Zara or H&M. So the market was amazing for Sports Girl to own. And because I was in the age bracket of the target market of the Sports Girl consumer, I think I was able to just immerse myself, and I really did. I mean, I lived and breathed that brand, and we worked hard and we played hard, but we were rewarded for it 100%. So there was always the balance that was involved. So I learned so much from Sports Girl. It really has a place in my heart and always will.
I feel like a lot of early jobs can make your principles in a way as well. And I guess I'm curious, like, at that early time, what was the biggest aha moment for selling a story for you when you're sort of just learning by doing at Sports Girl?
Yeah, I think so there was sort of two parts of Sports Girl. So there was like the product placement, which was really important because girls were buying magazines and they were flipping through and seeing how to style product and whatnot. And then there was probably the biggest stories about the repositioning of the brand, which to be honest, because I was so young, I wasn't dealing with the Australian or the AFR, but I was certainly part of that with Mary and the pitching that went on. So I started to learn how you create a business story. And then there was the celebrity moments. So I think the aha moment was when we identified that Paris Hilton would probably be a good fit with the Sports Girl brand. And we worked with a guy called James Young. James had a company called Dare at that stage, and then it turned to C, and a very, very forward agency. He now owns Cherry Bar in the city. So you'd know James Young.
Oh, right.
He's he's awesome. And James and I and the team had brainstormed this idea about Paris Hilton. So we approached her to come out to Australia to film, again, really ahead of our time, a segment in store at the Chapel Street store where the idea was that you could win a week in LA shopping with Paris Hilton and Nikki Hilton as the sisters. Now, this was pretty huge. Like,
yeah, I remember it. I remember girls were going nuts for it.
Nuts, like crazy. So Chapel Street shut down, Paris is out. The PR that we got was mental. What happened, though, was that Paris decided to have it off with Mark Philippoussis while she was here in Australia. And Mark was dating our beautiful princess, Delta Goodrum, at the time. And the media went off chops. And I had gone to the Cook Islands on a holiday, and because this was after the competition was all over, and the media, like, we were getting coverage in CNN. I had CNN calling me, 3AW, a Sky, like, it was just, and I was like, oh my God, I'm not sure how we're going to handle this. And how do I know what's going on in a personal relationship? I just had them out for a competition. It was nothing to do with, you know, the relationship that was going on. So I think that's when I started to see the power of how I could handle what was going on, especially being so young, and that pressure. Because PR is that constant pressure. You never turn off. You're always on. No matter where you are, you know, you can't stop. And I think when I landed in New Zealand, you know, my phone started going mental, and then those next 2 weeks were just full on. We had to lock down the winners. So once we'd announced the winners, the Current Affair had offered them $40,000 to share their story of their experience when they'd been with the Hilton sisters. It was crazy. Like, there wasn't obviously a lot going on, although 9/11 was close to it. I just can't remember which side of it was, but yeah, it was massive. So that's when I thought, okay, well, I've seen this blow up, so I reckon I can handle it. Yeah. So
that would have been really interesting for you in those early days of understanding the power of influence and talent. So I think that may have stayed with you. I want to sort of understand, though, two birds talking, because if you think about it, you're at Sports Girl, then you went to real estate, then you came back to fast fashion. At the founding Two Birds Talking as predominantly fast fashion PR agency. Well, where was
Yeah.
your head like at the time? Was
Yeah.
this just an amazing offer you got given to go into real estate? How did that sort of work out?
So that was GPT. That was Melbourne Central, actually.
Yeah.
So I was national marketing manager at Melbourne Central. So what had happened? Wow. So 6 years at Sports Girl, had gone on the ride of a lifetime. Actually met my husband whilst I was my husband now, but obviously met Dale while I was on a road show. So, which was crazy in Sydney. I was a little burnt out, I'll be honest. Sports Girl was amazing, but the travel and the things that I'd done and what I'd experienced, I really felt it was time probably for me to exit left. And I think I felt I'd lost the passion a bit. And this opportunity came up at GPT as national marketing manager of a big shopping centre. And I thought, well, I've worked with retail now. I think I could maybe help a lot of other retailers. And I knew that Melbourne Central had a real challenge because you know how it's so cold in that shopping centre for starters.
Oh, yeah.
There's doors everywhere and alleyways and you never know where you're going. And they couldn't get people to go up escalators. And so the idea was, how do we turn around this campaign and get more people in there? What I didn't realise when I got there was that Lendlease had once owned Melbourne Central and GPT had just taken it over. I was the only GPT person in a Lendlease environment. So I get to this office and everyone's like, do not like her, don't want her here. It was really tough because it was GPT versus Lendlease. So I'm kind of dealing with the Sydney people wanting me to make change, and then the Melbourne people are like, no. The politics is off the chops. Like it's just, whoa, like next level. And shopping centres, I didn't realise that as a marketing manager, I would be so involved with the operations of the centre. So I'd have to work every second or third Saturday. If somebody, unfortunately somebody had like jumped off the tower at Melbourne Central and committed suicide, and like dealing with those things, if somebody came in wielding a knife, what was I going to do? How was I going to lock down the shopping centre and make sure everyone was safe? I mean, that's not what marketing for PR is all about. So when I started meeting with the federal police, I thought, this is not for me. So I only lasted like 9 months there. I wasn't given a lot of authority. I wasn't really allowed to make change. I think Melbourne Central could have done some amazing things with their campaign. I was also working with City of Melbourne and really trying to bring people back into the city, but there was too many politics for me. And I think coming from a retailer that was quite a flat management, it was very flat management. I could have access to the CEO and the owner and the GM, whereas here it was all too hierarchical and it was very tough. So that's the real truth of what happened there. And then Amy, who I went into business with at Two Birds Talking, her and I had known each other from school days.
That's right.
And we had always kind of kept in contact. She travelled the world while I was doing my time at Sports Girl, and so there was real strength in what each of us had done. And she was working at a PR agency at the time, and she was like, what do you want to do when you grow up? Hilarious. And I was like, well, I think I want to own my own business. She's like, so do I. So her and I were talking whilst I was at Melbourne Central, and really looking back, I probably should have just left Sports Girl and continued into my own business.
Yeah.
But I think I felt like I needed to do something else after Sports Girl because I'd only had Sports Girl. So that was kind of where the head was. And we just jumped in. I mean, we launched a business December 2006. Who launches a business in December? We did.
It's like look, you could make the argument that Christmas period, but a lot of those campaigns are locked in like months before. So,
Totally.
So yeah, I can totally understand that. So your first few clients would have been probably the hardest in that business, you could probably argue. Because you're coming out of being on brand to working for brands.
Definitely. And, the power that I had at Sports Girl with the magazines was not the power I had anymore because I had so much to prove. And building a new business, even though you do have that background in you, you still have to prove what you are as a standalone business. So I know there's a lot of people that think if they work with agencies or they work with business and they just want to go out and start their own business because they feel like they've supported that person in getting a business to a certain level, that they think it's really easy to go out and do that. But it's not. You actually start all over again. That's what you do. So it's
a fresh slate.
Yeah, it's total fresh slate. So so that was learning. I think our first client was a client called Love Me or Leave Me, which was a handbag rental place. So basically, if you couldn't afford a Balenciaga or a Dior, hey, rent it for $200 a week.
Nice.
And we got some great press out of that because, again, it was new. People hadn't seen this format in Australia before. She got some great press. We then went on to work with Elk Accessories, which is a very successful global brand now, jewellery brand. Did some great work with Marnie and the team over there. And then as, I guess, word started to get out because of my background with Sports Girl, and Amy had also worked in retail. She was also on the wholesaling side, though. Her partner was Danish, and he had great boots, deco boots that he bought in. So as that word started to travel, we started working with everyone from Portmans to Witchery, to Smiggle, some really, really big Aussie brands. And we definitely were a fast fashion PR agency. And I would say that we probably hit number one there for a while. I mean, it's a big call, but I think Two Birds was definitely a place that fast fashion people were coming to, for sure.
Yeah. I think it sort of sounds like you were fresh and you needed some sort of niche, not to rely on, but to work into. And sort of with that first client, you've realized, okay, there's things happening here in retail that are different.
Yes.
And maybe that sort of stroked what had already been happening at places like Sports Girl, with the unique campaigns that you guys had run. So maybe there was something there about just going with the trend that was already sort of starting to show itself in the industry.
Definitely.
I'm intrigued then, One Day Dream, why go out purely on your own after being in PR for, I think, it was 2006 that Two Birds Talking was founded, and One Day Dream was 2015, right?
Correct. Yeah. Two Birds Talking. Firstly, the name, again, will always have a place in my heart. It was such a strong name. People resonated with it. We saw a lot of other businesses copying the name in different industries, unfortunately. But I guess that was the power of it. And you had two girls, two birds, talking about your brand. It was just fun. So that was that's where that was. I think I ended up having a baby in 2013, and your mind shifts. That's just what happens to a woman. It definitely changes. I guess I started to look at what I was enjoying and what I wanted to do, and so there was probably a little bit of upheaval going on in the business, at that time, and I take full responsibility for it because I think I really changed as a person. And I think when you have a baby, sometimes you think, oh my God, am I even capable of going back and doing this again? Am I even worthy of doing this? And that is something that I think women should speak up more about, because it really, really can bring you down. And I don't know whether I had some sort of depression after Billy. Like, I try and look back and I forget parts of when she was little. And some people say, that's actually part of trauma. When the body goes through trauma or the mind goes through trauma, or really things are quite not in a good place, those sort of things can happen. So Amy and I made the decision in 2015 to split. We had a great run. We wanted to end on a high. The business was working with Target. We had launched the Missoni alignment, which was massive, and Amy and the team had done a great job. I wasn't really part of that because I was coming back from mat leave and looking after another part of the silo of the business. And so it was time, and it was really hard as friends and business partners to make that decision, and as to who took the name, it was really there were people involved that helped us get to that point in terms of negotiation. And, I would have loved to have had Two Birds Talking, but I think Amy wanted it more. And for me, I think because of where my head was at, I felt like I needed something new. I needed something new, which was like the whole the Daydream. People were like, oh, it's a weak name, One Day Dream. What does it mean? One Day Dream or One Day Dream? Like, couldn't get it together. I was like, oh my God, I like it. So back off, people. And also I think the whole dream thing hadn't really come to fruition. And I think dreaming now is used in so much. It is about, we all have to dream. If we don't dream, we're dead. So, you have to dream up ideas and create different things to feel alive. And that was very much, I guess, where it came from me, because I was always creating new ideas. And that comes from campaigns and PR and all that sort of stuff. So the idea of having One Day Dream and then using PR to get it to the next level to make it a reality was kind of where that all came about.
Interesting.
And we're 5 years old today. Today.
I know. But exactly today.
Exactly today, because the name, I didn't register the name. So we finished off our partnership like end of financial year, which was end of June, and then which was quite a smooth transaction. It's a really wise thing to do.
Yeah.
And then I registered the name in August. Yeah.
Well, congratulations, 5 years.
Thank you.
I guess I'm really curious about what you said about the change in mindset when you had your girl. Because Lauren and I, who you've met, run this business together as partners. We were meant to be getting married in October, but of course, coronavirus got in the way of that. So assuming things go to plan in April, the big thing that we talk about a lot at the moment is kids, right?
Uh-huh.
And part of that is, what does she want to do longer term? Because she's the creative director of this business.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I was curious, what was that period like between having a child? Because I know there's going to be a time where really like the design and the art direction of the brand is led by her, but there's also going to be a time where she needs to take like at least 9 months off work, at least.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the standard is these days, like a year generally for mat leave or something like that.
Yeah.
So what would be your advice to women who haven't had that first child yet? About how and who are also running a business?
Yeah. And I know a lot of girls doing that at the moment. Look, I think it comes down to each person. I know women that I work with, very successful, driven women who have only taken 6 weeks off and gone back to work after they've had the baby. I took 6 months off and then came back after 6 months. And looking back, I wish I had taken more. You know, there's always ways that you can think back, but you don't get that time again when they're so little and they're growing. And for me to go back full time when the baby was only 6 months old was pretty big. It's really hard to juggle. I don't think anyone should post about things being easy, because it's not. Like, you're always thinking about what's going on with the baby, and you're always and plus your body's just doing a whole heap of wacky stuff. Like, so that's something just to get your head around as well. I'll never forget someone saying to me, "Oh, I know this great personal trainer, like, you know, you should just like get back into that and whip your body back into shape." And I was like, oh my God, it's the last thing I feel like. I just want to eat Tim Tams and, you know, look the other way, seriously. I think you have to talk about it before it happens. That's, you know, with your partner. And I think you need a plan. So we had a nanny who is still with us. I mean, she's not with us full time because Billy's now 7, but Nicole's been a huge part of our family since Billy was born. And I mean, she's like my daughter as well. It's crazy. So you know, we found that and it worked really well for me. So Billy treats her like a sister, and it's worked really well for our businesses. And so we've been able to run the 3 businesses between Dale and myself. But I don't know whether there's any true advice, because I feel like every person is different. I watch different women go through different things, but don't feel guilty. The one thing I can say is just don't feel guilty. James Young, who I mentioned before, said to me, Prue, you're just pressing pause, right? You just press pause on your life. And then you have the babies, and then you can go back to what you want to do, or you can change your life and you can go and be a stay-at-home mum or a full-time mum. Like, I don't think you know until that baby comes out as to what you want to do. And I probably felt the guilt of that I had to go back because of my commitment to Amy and the business, if that makes sense. And I probably should have thought about that a little bit more, because I didn't realise how much it was going to affect me or change me. So,
I think that planning element is key, in that just the process of talking about it would be valuable, even if it doesn't pan out as to what you plan. I think having an idea in your head of like, if I feel this way, or if I feel this way, this is how we're going to approach it. And before that actually comes along, before I'm giving birth to this child, we're going to do these things, so that it's not a stress, because you're going to be overwhelmed when you've got the baby, you've got the business going on.
Absolutely.
I think it makes a lot of sense.
And you guys will figure it out. I mean, working together is a great thing. You know your strengths, you know your weaknesses, and maybe putting somebody into a role to support, you know, what Lauren's doing, so that, and then she has the opportunity to make decisions, because that's the thing. Sometimes I didn't feel like I had a chance to make a decision. It was like, oh my God, there's my business and I've been away for 6 months, so I've got to go back. You know, yeah, so
I think it would mean that for her personally that she's working less in the business, and more so on the business, and so that she can move into that over a longer period of time, so she doesn't feel like she's under pressure to jump back straight into 5 days a week. I think that was something that my auntie said to me is, she was running a handbag business while having her first 2 kids, and it just gets a bit too much. I think.
It does.
I'm curious. You've been in the industry for about 20 years now, I think. Is one of the profiles.
Yes, I just have to keep doing this.
What sort of, if you look at that entire period thus far, up to One Day Dream, what's sort of been the highs and the lows so far?
Oh, wow. Goodness, there's been so many highs and so many lows. I think one of the highs probably was starting One Day Dream for me, because I did it on my own. So that was awesome. There was a real sense of achievement there for me. Look, the brands that I've worked with, I'm so proud of the teams and the brands over the years that we've worked with. As I said, massive brands like Mercedes, Vegemite, Sephora, The Body Shop, Witchery, Sniggles, some really big brands that have the opportunity to also, educate, not just sell. So sure, they are selling products and I'm behind pushing those products. But at the end of the day, there's been some great campaigns, like the Witchery White Shirt campaign we worked on 1 year and did a great campaign for that.
Oh, right.
So many moons ago. That was at Two Birds Talking. We did that campaign with Georgia and the team. And I think more so now, the Dream team for me, which has been a new release out of One Day Dream, is really about working with people direct on achieving their dreams. So they've already established themselves on Instagram or in their own business, but how do I get them to that next level, and how do I really make them sustainable? And also just to be there to really empower them. I think that's something that I learnt after I left Two Birds. I went on an amazing entrepreneurship course to Bali. It's called Roger Hamilton's iLab. Check him out. He's really cool. And I went for 2 weeks over there because I was really confused about just me. I was still confused. and I went over to Bali and did this 2-week transformation workshop with him, just on my business, how I was positioning myself, how I was going to position One Day Dream, what my point of difference was, all sorts of different things we learned over there. And also working with a whole range of people from South Africa, London, America, like people I would never, ever probably come across in my life, really. So it was a huge eye-opener. And so one of the things that I got out of iLab was that, one, I was told I should be a politician. That's interesting. People who know me will laugh at that because I've always said that that's something in the back of my mind. But two, that to work with people and really lift them and elevate them. So starting the Dream team has been awesome because, you get to work with brands and products, but this is actually real people and changing lives. So for me, that's really exciting. Exciting.
That to me was really interesting, and why I wanted to interview you, because we've just started taking on some talent, only because they asked. We've had people ask, and we predominantly work with brands, but talent is a different game, isn't it? I actually find it a lot more enjoyable because it's like a partnership in a way.
It is. It's much more personal.
Yeah, it's a lot more personal, and so when people start becoming critical or suggestive of this talent, I feel myself more personally invested, as opposed to when you would have the same discussion around a brand. So I guess from your perspective, what's sort of been I have so many questions, from like, how do you pursue new talent? Do they reach out to you? What are your general principles for this business versus working with brands? So I think the first thing I need to say is I don't really look at numbers. Numbers on Instagram for me these days don't mean anything. I think they're good to have, but unless that person has a skill set and stays in their lane on what they're good at, how do you create something out of that? Because you can't be everything to everyone. Like I can't be someone's accountant and someone's lawyer. It's not going to work, but from a branding perspective, I can certainly help them get to that next level. So
I mean, at the moment, there's been a lot of people approaching me, and I've been approached probably for the last 4 or 5 years, and I really did put it off because I just wanted to get Daydream right and really build that branding side. And we predominantly focus on beauty and lifestyle with what we do on the PR side. And I think with the talent side, I kind of dance with them. So I say, let's just have like a month or 6 weeks of getting to know each other before anything happens. So we do a lot of talking. We talk about dreams. We talk about aspirations. We talk about vision. We talk about what they've done in the past, what's worked, what's not worked, and where do they want to go. And unless they have a direct vision or a pinpoint on where they want to go, I'm not gonna work with that person. So that's really important. Or somebody that will come to me and say, look, I could do this, but I'm too busy. Well, no, that's not really what I'm about. It's not about me just taking over your busyness. It's about me creating a brand for you. So there's got to be that mutual respect and that mutual understanding that what we're going to do together will really set this person as a brand. This is what it is. They have to become a brand. They're not just another person on Instagram. And I think where the PR side of it really helps them from me is that I can get them stories and I can get them press, which helps lift their profile, which then attracts more people to come to them for their particular lane and what they're good at. So sure, there's the deals that happen on Instagram and whatnot, but I don't know. I think without longer term strategies and without longer term visions, why work with the talent? It's not just getting the quick jobs. It's not really about that. There has to be a bigger purpose.
Well, it sort of sounds like you just understand, much like when you went to Bali, that you have a certain skill set and you can add to this individual, and it's only going to work for certain people, which I would agree with. I think the reason it came around for us was because running a creative agency, we could add things to these initial 2 people that reached out to us. But the other people that had reached out prior sort of just didn't, like you said, you were just filling a gap for them that they were just too busy to sort. And it was sort of like, I don't know if it's really if it's worth the effort, if that makes sense. Like it's not that you don't like what they do. It's just sort of,
yeah, that's right.
It's too much effort for where you can actually help them. And it sort of makes sense as to how Batch and Co came about. I guess I'm curious, how did you meet Thomas? I mean, spritz in a can is the most Brighton thing ever.
Oh my God, we are so getting the piss taken out of us at the moment about the Brighton spritz, but I kind of love it. I'm all for it. I'm like, you know what? It's a bit of fun. Everyone's like, oh, how could you know the Spritz Brighton just because you live there? No, that was actually not the case. We did have another place named, but trademarking causes a lot of issues, right? And if you try and think of beaches in Melbourne, there's not a lot. No. So our thought process was, well, a lot of people do go to the Brighton beach boxes and they get their photos outside, the skipping kangaroo boxing and all that sort of stuff. So that was where Brighton came from more than anything. And we just wanted something fun. I mean, don't take yourself too seriously either, like it's a Noosa, Bondi and Brighton spritz. Take a sip and watch the sunset and feel the heat and put the sand between your toes. Let's just take a chill pill, people. But how did I meet Thomas? So Thomas is married to a very good friend of mine, Sarah Bazogny, and I've known Sarah since I was about 16, and Thomas is Swedish, and he came out to Australia following his love, and they've been together since we were babies, since we were very, very young. And Thomas and my husband had a bromance over. We went to Thailand on someone's honeymoon, which was hysterical. And Thomas and Dale would sit up at night drinking cocktails and mixed drinks and playing cards. I'll never forget it. And then the next thing you know, the 2 of them are starting bars in Melbourne, and so they had a couple of bars in the city. And then look, rent and all that sort of stuff is tough in bars, I think. And Thomas would create these beautiful seasonal cocktails at the bar. And Dal said to me one day, he's just like, oh, I just wish I could go in and find a really good. My husband loves strawberry daiquiris, right? Yes, it's true. He's 6'4", the most masculine man you've ever seen in your life, and he loves a strawberry daiquiri. He's like, I'm so sick of having like drinks that I just can't make easily. We never have all the ingredients. Imagine if we could put it into a can, a good tasting drink, and we could give that to everybody. I was like, great idea. Let's talk to Thomas. So that was probably about 5 years ago. And Thomas, like the mad professor, started creating all these flavors in his kitchen. And we did tastings, and some of them were delicious, some of them were not. And we, like 2 years later, we had kind of traveled the world finding the different people that could help us create this. It's quite a process. I don't quiz me on that because it's quite detailed. You'll need to have Thomas on the show to give you all that. And then we came back and put it together and mixed it up, and voila, and here we are. But it certainly wasn't a quick process. So
no. And I mean, there's a lot of value in it. I mean, having worked in hospitality and being locked down, I decided probably March to invest in a proper bar. And I also rationalized it by guests are coming here to the studio. Let's, if it's an afternoon interview, we can offer them a proper cocktail, because I love a good Negroni or old fashioned or something like that. But it's bloody expensive. Like it's cheaper than going out for a drink, but then you also miss the social aspect, and you got to have people over more. So you're putting in like a grand at least into a fully equipped bar.
Yes.
And I've seen like the canned Negroni is becoming a thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen this, but I was like, damn, there's something in this. I know that the Everly have these little glass bottles of like a Negroni and whatnot, but I think the can has got better staying power in terms of manufacturing. Yeah. So there's a lot of legs to it. I really, really like it. I've had Batch & Co in the past, and it's a fascinating product for me. Yes, please.
Thank you. No, we will. Look, the taste flavor's there, and it's really interesting with drinks. Like compared to fashion and beauty, booze or drinks or beverages is all about the taste. So it's like liquid on lips, and getting liquid on lips is harder than getting a blusher or a lipstick or a shirt or whatever it might be, because taste is just so personal, and it's so particular. People have so many different things they like. So I don't particularly like Negronis. I actually don't like them. Yeah. So it's really, it's been a very interesting project for me from a marketing and PR perspective as to how to do it. Also, whilst thinking about drinking responsibly, being a responsible brand, all those things that sometimes we don't have to think about when we're not dealing with booze. So that's been a real eye-opener for me. And we're just celebrating 1 year of Batch & Co. So the cans we launched at the Noosa Food and Wine Festival, which was last year. That was last May. And then the non-alcoholic drinks, we're probably about 3 years in. But Qantas has been serving us for about 2 years in their business class lounges. And that has been great. Like that, everybody was, loving the flavors, and we were meant to do a whole range of other flavors, which was so exciting. I'd love to give them away, but I can't tell you. But when we start flying again, we'll see them, because of course everything's on hold at the moment. So
Well, I guess I'm curious, because this is something I've spoken to Lauren about. Is eventually I want to be able to create brands that we want or enjoy. And she's made the argument, having come from the agency land, well, if you start doing that, then people will push back on you in terms of working with you. So I guess from your perspective, have you ever seen any pushback on the client side? Or I guess, do you work with many liquor brands?
That's a really interesting question. So I just won the Pernod Ricard account.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Which was really interesting. So we haven't actually, we'll release that soon, but that is happening. And I think for them, I was really open and honest with them. Look, the key in business is transparency. I'm totally transparent in everything that I do. So when I pitched on it, I sent all of the team Batch & Co. cans. I said, enjoy this is what I do. This is part of my life. And so through that, and because of that experience of actually being immersed, it was like when I was at Sports Girl and I was still studying. I had, 1 semester left. I got high distinctions in that last semester because I was on the ground experiencing what was going on, So it's the same with having a brand of your own. When you're immersed not just in the PR and marketing, but in the business, the distribution, the retailers, the people, when you're on the ground, I'm on the front line with that brand every day. What I can add to the Pernod Ricard account with some well-established brands that they have is great for them. So I don't see that as a problem, as long as you're transparent about what you're doing. And I probably have to be more thoughtful around not ensuring some of the products might crossover. But that's just power. That's having power in that space, to be honest. So
I that's the same argument I've made. I think, and it's much what we take to brands anyway. Because most of our agency being creative and focused on content, we can say, well, hey, we produce this thing every week, this highly produced show. We're doing more than a lot of agencies would do, and I think it sort of lends to that as well, and that's sort of the argument I've made. I mean, that's something that I dream about, when I'm daydreaming in the shower or like just sitting on the couch, like going into nothingness.
Keep dreaming. Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking about. I'm curious from a PR person's perspective as well. The podcast business. I mean, you guys have. We get a lot of PR pitches. We're finally getting good agencies that reach out like yours. So when we got the outreach, it was nice.
Right.
From your perspective, how have you seen the change in this? Like, it's obvious that you see the value in it because you have talent who are predominantly based on Instagram and so forth. But looking at a medium like podcasting and maybe even video like YouTube, how do you see that changing, and how are you guys engaging that medium in particular?
So that's a big question, but look, moving imagery and the digital space is our lives now. So we've just seen obviously the magazine's collapse up in Sydney with Bauer and whatnot. So and look, I predicted this like 10 years ago. I was like, it's going to die. It's like, and I would always say to girls, they go, you're being ridiculous. I'm like, no, it's going to happen. So I think, digital and moving imagery is just, it's so much easier. Like, people watching us today, they can just get so much more of a sense of who we are and where we've come from and what the story is versus just reading something in a magazine or in a flat perspective. So, it's huge. Podcasting is massive. Like, it is at a point at the moment. I did say to someone the other day, has it gone too big? Like, because there's so many options. So I think the challenge for you guys now is to figure out how can you get the cut through to become the podcast that people come to for certain things, because there is so much opportunity out there for people to listen and what to listen to, I think there's a lot of crap out there as well. But again, it depends what you want to listen to. I mean, I would say some of the drive shows on radio are not full of great information either, but they're entertaining and they're lighthearted, and that's what people want sometimes, just to tune out and zone out. I mean, I'm watching Entourage at the moment. I'm totally back into season 1 and I'm back on it, and it's just fun. And I mean, it is my industry, and Ari Gold gives me some great one-liners, but people do want, I guess, a sense of escapism as well when they're listening to podcasts too. And I think that the great thing about podcasts is that you can listen to it at any time you want. You can schedule it. It fits in with your lifestyle, so you're not going to miss something. So, the days of free-to-air TV and scheduled TV shows and magazines, they're shifting. That it's not that they're disappearing. They're disappearing. No, they're just evolving into different things. They're evolving into the new worlds and into our new space. And podcasting and YouTube and video is absolutely the future. Like, I want the 3D, 4D stuff to start. That's what I'm super excited about.
Yeah, I was reading some of your predictions. It was very interesting. I want to get to that in a moment. But I think you're right about podcasting. It's intriguing. We've gone from this stage of it being this new novel thing to, okay, this is a thing.
Yeah.
To how do you stand out? And I think that's because a lot of people, like you said, brands that were traditionally in written form or on traditional media have moved there. Like, Michelle Obama now has a podcast on Spotify. I think Joe Rogan just signed a deal worth $100 million a year to publish on Spotify exclusively. And so now it becomes sort of an arms race to how many people can you pull from old media to new media that can help you get that cut through with this new supposed brand. And so that's sort of the challenge that we're all facing now. COVID, it was really interesting. I read this interview that you did. It was Feb 10th. I don't know if it was it didn't say if it was last year or this year, but it was intriguing to see how many predictions came true. I mean, I knew pre-COVID that events were just huge. Like, every single brand had an activation of sorts with an event.
Mm.
Virtual reality on the creative side for us was becoming a question that was always asked in meetings now, like for a campaign. People were always asking about it.
Mm.
Magazines, you mentioned Bauer Media. I was surprised that they did close them down. I would have thought they would spin them out into something pure play digital, or some maybe integrated some of the magazines together, but that's Bauer Media for you. And then IG also well and truly became, I think, the dominant platform in the last 9 months. Like if I speak to anyone now, including parents, cousins and whatnot, they all speak about Instagram. From your perspective, what was sort of the first insight to COVID? When did you start to pay attention to this thing?
I remember posting something on my stories in January when the fires were on as well. And I said, we will find a vaccine and we will get through this together with the fires. The bushfires just affected so many people. And I did not think at any point that it was going to get to this level at all. And then I was at the Grand Prix with Lana Wilkinson, and that was the Thursday, and we're at a Mercedes
Fashion
lunch.
On the Grid, right? No, it was Mercedes.
No, this was the Mercedes lunch. So the day, was that on the same day? Oh my God, yes, it might have been the same day.
Yeah.
Yes. So, and the rumours started, and I was speaking to Haddam at the Atlantic Group, who was doing all the catering at the Grand Prix, and Haddam and Agnesia are good friends of ours, and he said, it's coming. And I was like, what's coming? And he's like, like COVID is here. It's like everything's going to get shut down. Like it's serious. And I think that's when I started looking around the room going, oh my God, we're all here. How can this happen? And then anyway, I left. I walked across the road, got a cab, got in with this Uber driver from the Mercure Hotel just on St Kilda Road there. And he's an Indian guy, and he had literally prepared for Armageddon. He said, I have my wife, I have my 2 kids at home, I have stocked up on flour, bread, oil. He had like his meals prepared for 4 weeks. I'm going, oh, sorry, what? What is going on? He's like, yeah, this is coming. I have family in India. This is going to shut down like Australia. I'll never forget that conversation. And like I'd had a few champagnes. So I was like, oh my God, this is
so it hit you like a brick.
Yeah, it really did. It really did. And then we come down to the farm because living in Melbourne right now, it's just a bit foul, just in the city. So at least we've got property here and we can walk around, and the dogs and everyone's got a bit of space. But I think that first lockdown, sitting here, those first 2 weeks of that first lockdown, which was end March, early April, and I was literally picking up this phone to my clients and they were dropping like flies. I think I lost 45% of my revenue in 3 days. Gone.
Wow.
And I completely understood why they needed to do it. I had to. There was no option. Did I think that there was maybe a little bit of knee jerking at the start? Yes. But then was that brand prepared? Like maybe there was issues there beforehand. Like I think it's just COVID did weed out some people pretty quickly in the beginning, if they weren't planned and prepared to do this sort of thing. A lot of the big boys ended up staying with us, which was really good. So I definitely still had a certain percentage of the business that was able to keep my staff. Then obviously JobKeeper came in, that helped us.
Big help.
Yep. And then we started to see that whole pitching side come in again. So more recently, there's been a heap of pitching, but what I'm finding now in this second lockdown is that businesses that I'm pitching to overseas have just said, look, we're just going to press pause right now because of what's going on in Melbourne. Yeah. And, if you're working with a beauty brand like Mecca, I believe, obviously their stores are shut, but also their warehouses are shut too. So I'm not sure even how the whole online thing is going to work in this second lockdown that we're going through. It's a massive impact, and Mr. Andrews has a lot to answer for at the end of this. A lot.
It still blows my mind. I said this to Lauren the other night. I cannot believe this happened because some guy wanted to get down and jiggy with it. You know what I mean? Like it shouldn't have even happened, but yet here we are. And,
not only that, did you see on 60 Minutes the other night, they were hiring the security guards from Gumtree. I mean, these kids.
Yeah. But that is, if you look at the all of the people who have gotten and where it started, it's all been in groups of people that essentially work shit kicker jobs. So you're talking taxi drivers, Uber drivers, security guards, a lot of hospitality, healthcare workers. And I spoke to a mate who actually our client director is Sri Lankan. He's like, it's the whole Indian community. They've been the ones who are massively affected. And when you look at the heat map of cases, it's no surprise in places like Werribee, what's the suburb that's near the airport? Not Airport West, but Craigieburn. Craigieburn has a strong Indian community. And then, if you got one person who doesn't realize they're sick and goes to because they've got big families, they go to an event for Eid Mubarak or something like that, and then it's like wildfire. And it just still blows my mind, like that it started just from a hotel quarantine. Like it didn't start from anything else, and here we are. And you're right, like it was really weird post-March. I remember there was a Friday, we had like 4 shoots on the go at once, all around like Armidale, Toorak area, and I remember I was just going from shoot to shoot as the different producers were managing it, and a quick coffee for like a BDM meeting and all this stuff going on. But then within a few weeks it had just simmered right down, and now I've really noticed it, and we've like been counting all our dollars and chickens and making sure everything is accounted for, because no one wants to be pitched right now. And if they are, it's only like long-term projects, and they're probably not going to make a decision until like Q4. And then you've got to think about Christmas coming up. There's always a down period during Christmas. So I think my dad was saying to me, having been through the Victorian recession in the 90s, which nearly made him declare bankruptcy. He said it's as bad as that. But again, you and I spoke about focusing on the positives. The businesses, I think, that can survive now and make it through the next 12 to 18 months will be the ones that come out on top in their respective industries.
Absolutely. I think pivoting is the new reality. So just like pivot and stay there and pivot again. That word's doing my head in, but it's true. Like you have to adapt and you have to pivot. And we're doing that all the time. We're thinking about new things, even with Batch & Co. from an alcohol perspective. Okay, sure, retailers are open at the moment, but what are we doing online? And also there are other states at the moment. So Victoria's in the shit right now, but we can still do other things in the other states. So that's kind of a focus, and we just have to really we all just have to bandy together for Victoria. I mean, look, people know I'm a little bit sick of Victoria, not for the fact that I don't enjoy living here. I've lived here my whole life. Like, this is my life. But I love Sydney. I think there's more opportunity up there. I think it's a more feminine state. I always say that. I feel like Melbourne is a very masculine state. A lot of men do very well down here. There's a lot of those dark laneways, and it's a bit of a spiritual thing. But I don't know. I think it's like Melbourne really needs support right now, because everything I'm hearing on the grapevine is that people just want to get out of here. They've lost faith. They've lost faith in their premier. They've lost faith in the state. We were the most livable city, and we're the capital of sports in Australia. And for this to happen, the ramifications for the city are, I don't even know where to start. The small businesses that I know, look at the Lord Mayor walking around the empty streets the other day. I mean, it's just, it's quite scary. I mean, I know, New York went through this and they can bounce back, but it's a little different with Melbourne. It's
very different. The thing in New York that people often forget is a lot of those deaths were predominantly in aged care facilities, because they just didn't have the capacity to move those people out of the facilities into hospitals. So it is very, very different. It is as we know, in the aged care facilities here, but not in the way that it was in New York. And a lot of obviously most of the deaths are people who are aged over 70. So it's just, it's a very different, I don't know what the I've just been having this debate with people like, what's the end goal?
Yeah, that's right.
So I guess like I'm curious for you, what does the next, I know it would be really hard, but what are the variable options that you've got for the next 12 to 18 months?
I look from a PR perspective, I think there's a good opportunity. So even in the small recession that we had, or wasn't small, but in 2008, for example, that was 2 years after we started Two Birds, and that was probably one of our biggest years. So
Really?
I think PR and marketing can actually do well in this space. By helping brands and getting them out there, because there is more opportunity right now. And I'm not saying that that's an opportunistic moment for me, but if there is a brand that really wants to drive something but also give something back, now is a good time to do that. So we're seeing lots of different things where brands are really trying to get on board and support people during COVID, and I think that will only evolve more and more as we go through. You know, with the alcohol brands, I mean, you know, people are drinking more than ever right now, so that's something that will just trickle along. I mean, for me, the focus is on being a responsible brand in that space. I had a friend pass away of alcoholism at a very early in February. So this year's been a really, really tough year for me. So it's quite raw. Obviously, you know, she definitely had some demons, and not everybody goes through that. But I have to take that on board whenever I'm talking about my brand and whenever I talk about alcohol as well. And really, you know, it's just to be consumed if you can handle it. Some people can't handle booze, you know. So I think we have to think about that with COVID as well. So, yeah, I mean, with the future, look, at the moment, I'll be completely honest, I'm probably taking every month as it comes because so much is changing, and I don't think you can plan too much. So if I try and plan too much, I feel like I might get anxious. So I'm like, stay in the moment, one foot in front of the other. My Sydney office is still in full operation. We're still servicing a whole host of clients.
Yeah.
We still are doing deals and PR with the talent down here. So I'm very blessed in that respect. But I have to keep going because I'm the leader of this ship. And, you know, that's important that I keep a level head and keep the team coming with me as well, which is what Mr. Andrews needs to do. He needs to get a level head. He needs to direct the team, and he needs to just give us some hope. Like, come on, mate, do something. Give us some hope.
Communicate what's our goals here. That's the biggest thing I've found is that the communication has been
terrible.
Yeah, really, really lucky. And people say, oh, they're so good on a day-to-day basis. Yeah, they tell us the numbers and all that sort of stuff, but there's no articulation of what the end goal is. And I think people really need that. That's the biggest thing. I remember I was speaking with one of the talent that we're looking to manage at the moment the other night. She was doing a live on Instagram, and she was like really upset. I mean, she's young. And she's just frustrated with the situation that she's in because this was the year, you know, this is the year that all these great things were going to happen, and all this work that she'd done in the year prior was going to have results, but now she can't even leave her house. And so I think for a lot of people, the frustration lies in not being able to make seemingly small but important life decisions. And that's the biggest thing. Like, to be honest with you, I'm sick of all this wedding shit. I just want to get married tomorrow. Like I'm done dealing with the constant changes, and that is I'm just one person. So just imagine, you know, 3 to 5 million people that live in Greater Melbourne.
Yeah, I know. No, absolutely. So the whole wedding thing's been really tough on a lot of people.
Yeah. Rapid fire questions. I want to jump into some fast questions to finish off.
Okay, sure.
Okay. First one that I missed at the very beginning, which I would ordinarily ask, but are there any lessons that you've learnt from your parents, either directly or indirectly?
Yes. What would I say? Dad gave really good advice. Nobody escapes death or taxes, so just accept that and keep moving on with life. My grandfather actually said nothing ever stays the same, so get used to a different normal. That was his huge advice when I was young, which is very true. Nothing ever stays the same. And my mum would say, when the going gets tough, the tough get going.
Okay, I like that.
So I think I had just very pragmatic, you know, sensible people in my life growing up that was like, there's always going to be dramas, and it's just how you deal with them and stand on your own 2 feet. Yeah.
Best purchase under $200 that's impacted you during this last 6 months?
Oh my God, a bottle of gin.
Yeah. What's your gin of choice?
I like Citadel. Citadel gin is a beautiful French gin. Yeah, it's gorgeous. Yeah,
Very nice
probably a desk at the farm too. I got a really good little desk at the farm, and that I can feel semi-normal, so that's been good too.
Right, if you were to recommend to the audience a doco, movie, or TV series that you've been watching of late, not Entourage, what would it be?
Oh my goodness, we've watched so many. A doco TV series. We have seriously watched so many, and I'm coming to this. There's a show. It's based in America. It's a show on Airbnbs, and it's like Stay Home or something like that. Anyway, what happens is they bring in a designer into the show, and she revamps the place, and then you get to like look like a rock star owning this place, and your Airbnb gets rented out, and it's all redone and all looking fabulous. And I thought, what a great idea for a TV show. I love it.
It's a really good concept.
It's a really good concept. And then if you're the owner of the Airbnb, you pay the stylist to come in. So from the show's perspective, they don't have to buy it, they don't have to pay for it. And then you keep all the furniture, and then you get the free PR via the show, and then everyone wants to stay at your Airbnb. I
see a format for Nicole there.
Yeah, so do I. So do I. That was a great show. I love that because I do houseboats and all sorts of different things. It's quite fun.
Is this on YouTube, Netflix, Stan?
It's on Netflix. It's on Netflix.
Interesting. Yeah. We've been watching Mad Men at the moment.
Yes.
And we're in the last season, so I need something to start after that.
Yeah. I loved like Queen of the South and House of Cards, and they were all big favourites of mine, but they're all kind of over at the moment. Yeah. So, yeah.
All right, last question for you. If you had to pick a food item that's been your go-to during this whole period, what would it be?
Oh, a mint slice.
Oh, yes. Finally, summer.
Yeah.
Do you know, we go to Spring Street Grocer up on Spring Street, and they've got all this nice fancy stuff. You know, you can get all sorts of cheeses, wines, gourmet food. You can get caviar, all that. And the one sort of standard item that they have is mint slice and Tim Tams. You just can't go wrong.
You can't go wrong. Honestly, it'll put a smile on your dial every time.
Lauren is obsessed. Like if she buys a pack, so she has to know that I'm going to have some. Otherwise, she'll eat the whole pack herself.
Yep. Tell her I'm same page. And you do it layer by layer, by layer. Yeah.
I love that. All right. Look, Pru, thanks for doing this. Where can people find you on the interwebs?
They can find me at www.onedaydream.com.au, or my Instagram is just at Pru Corrigan without the E, just PRU, and also Batch & Co. You can check us out there too. So I'm fairly easy to find. I don't think there's too many Pru Corrigans. My maiden name was Murphy, which was a bit tougher because there's too many of us.
There's a lot
around.
of Murphys.
There's a lot of Murphys.
We'll make sure we link that. But thanks again for coming on.
Thanks, Jordan. It's been fun.
Thank you so much for watching Uncommon and this week's episode. If you like it, smash that like button. If you want to keep up to date with what we're doing, please do subscribe. We would love that. We'd love to build this audience that we're growing here of Uncommoners. If you want to keep up to date with audio, you can search for us on all of your good podcast apps. It's Uncommon or Uncommon Show will typically find us. For social, you want to see behind the scenes this amazing studio that I'm sitting in, just search at Uncommon_show and everything will be there, including our weekly promos. But look, thanks so much for stopping by. Until next time, thanks for watching.